Hi everybody, Andy from Estella's Revenge, and I'm here today with a review of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And I recently read my first Shirley Jackson novel, and that was We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And I was incredibly impressed. I really, really loved that book, and so check out my channel if you want to see the review of that book as well. So, in the past, I've had a really horrible habit of reading an author's work, really, really enjoying it, and maybe never reading anything of theirs again. I'm a fickle reader. It takes a lot for me to read through all of an author's work, but there have been a few occasions when I have not read through all of their work, but a lot of their work. So Paul Auster, I've read a lot of his work. His wife, Siri Hustvedt, I've read a lot of her work. And you get such a different understanding of an author's talent and an author's overall themes and tropes in their work if you can read a large selection, or even if they don't have a large selection available, just an expanded selection of their works. And so in the case of Shirley Jackson, she has not written a lot of novels, to my knowledge. The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle are the first ones that come to mind. And then, of course, she's very famous for her short stories as well, and she has also published some memoirs. So, after being so impressed with We Have Always Lived in the Castle, I decided not to hold off. I ordered The Haunting of Hill House immediately, and, really have only read these books a few weeks apart, which is perhaps a first for me. I definitely don't usually read them in quick succession. So there are some problems with doing that, but there are also some rewards to doing that. It's very fresh in my mind, but I think when you read them in quick succession like that, it's also very obvious which one is your favorite. One wins over the other to a greater extent. So I have to say, out of We Have Always Lived in the Castle and The Haunting of Hill House, I preferred We Have Always Lived in the Castle. That's not to say that Hill House is not a great book, because it really, really is. But just my personal preference was for We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And so I will say a little bit more about that at the end of this review, but I'm taking forever, so let's get into it. So The Haunting of Hill House is about a psychologist named Dr. Montague, and he sets out to write some new findings about supernatural occurrences and his research into the paranormal. And so with that in mind, he invites 3 individuals to join him in Hill House, which is known to be haunted. He tries to go into it with more or less an open mind and not to skew the perceptions of the people who are joining him too much. But very quickly it becomes apparent that Hill House has some very realistic things going on. So first we have Eleanor, who is kind of a mousy character. She has taken care of her mother for many years, and her mother has passed away. And so now she lives with her sister, and she doesn't have a lot of independence. She is just kind of a pathetic character, to tell you the truth. But she is chosen for this project because she has some history with poltergeist activity. When she was a kid, her and her sister, not them in particular, but the house that they lived in was peppered by stones from the heavens, and they could never explain why. And so that was in the news, and so that's how Dr. Montague finds her. They're also joined by Theodora. And I can't remember why Theodora was chosen. She had some quality about her that made her a good contender for this project, but I don't remember what it was. And then Luke is actually an heir to the house. He will one day own it. He's a member of the family that owns it, and so he is invited along as well. So within just a couple of days, I think this book takes place over the span of a week, they start to have some unusual supernatural activity, and it's pretty obvious that some of this stems from the nursery in the house. It seems like the ghostly entity in the house is somehow related to a child or to children. And given the backstory of the house, that would make some sense. So, yeah. This is a pretty straightforward ghost story. If you've seen any of the film adaptations, it will take the edge off of the scary a little bit. I had seen the most updated version of that adaptation starring Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, maybe Owen Wilson, maybe? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it was done probably in the 2000s. And so I knew enough about this story to take some of the edge off, but there were some genuinely creepy moments. Shirley Jackson is really, really good at building suspense in her novels, and this was no different. So I really enjoyed this book. I read it in a day, very easily, just a few hours. It's about almost 250 pages. And yeah, it's one I will reread, I'm sure. It's a great classic. It's an updated classic. It was published in 1959, and so it's very easy to read and very easy to get into. So if you're a little bit shy of reading classics, this would probably be a good one for you. As we're going into the fall season and getting close to Halloween, this would be a great choice as well. I think the reason that I preferred We Have Always Lived in the Castle is because I felt like it was a little more subtle. I felt like it was creepy in a different way. It was creepy in a way that was not so overt, not so knock you over the head, supernatural. There is some question in this book about Eleanor's mental state. And so she could be an unreliable character, an unreliable narrator, but it's still pretty heavy-handed. So yeah, I preferred We Have Always Lived in the Castle, but they are both really, really great books. I definitely suggest them to anyone. You know, no matter what you read, I feel like Shirley Jackson could be something that you enjoy because it's really easy to get into and it's really cleverly written. So yeah, The Haunting of Hill House, great book, and I hope you'll read some Shirley Jackson and let me know what you think. Bye.